I want you to picture something for me. It's 6 a.m., and somewhere right now, a guy is standing in his backyard with a soil pH meter, 3 different fertilizer bottles, a spreadsheet on his phone tracking his watering schedule, and he hasn't even planted a single seed yet. He's exhausted. He hasn't even started. And by July, his garden will be dead, and he'll tell everyone that gardening just isn't for him. Here's what nobody's telling that guy. Gardening was never supposed to be this hard. For 10,000 years, human beings grew food without pH meters, without fertilizer bottles, without spreadsheets. They watched what the land already knew how to do, and they got out of its way. Somewhere in the last 100 years, we convinced ourselves that dirt is broken and needs our constant intervention to produce anything. That's not just wrong. It's backwards. The less you interfere with soil that's allowed to work the way it's designed to work, the more it gives you. So today I'm going to show you how to grow a genuinely productive garden with almost none of the effort you think you need. No tilling, no chemical fertilizers, no daily watering schedules, no spreadsheets. Just a handful of decisions made once at the start that let the soil do what soil has always known how to do. Stick with me through this whole thing, because the order actually matters. Skip a step and you'll end up back at square one, frustrated, standing in your yard at 6 a.m. wondering why nothing's growing. Let's start with the biggest lie in modern gardening, and that's the idea that you need to till your soil before you plant anything. Tilling looks productive. You're out there turning the earth, it looks dark and rich and ready. But what you're actually doing is taking a functioning underground city and demolishing it. Soil isn't just dirt, it's a living structure, full of fungal threads that stretch for miles, that move water and nutrients to plant roots like a delivery network. It's full of bacteria that fix nitrogen out of thin air and hand it to your plants for free. Every time you till, you rip that network apart. And then you wonder why your plants need so much fertilizer. They need fertilizer because you destroyed the system that used to feed them for free. So step one, and this is the one that trips people up because it feels wrong, is you do not touch the soil. You don't dig it. You don't turn it. You don't even walk on the bed once it's established, because compacting the soil crushes the air pockets that roots and microbes need to breathe. Instead, you build up. You lay cardboard or thick layers of newspaper right over the grass or the weeds that are already there. That's not lazy, by the way. That's strategic. That cardboard smothers what's underneath, and as it breaks down, it feeds the soil life instead of fighting it. On top of that cardboard, you pile compost, then straw, then more compost, layer after layer, like you're making lasagna. Give it a few weeks, sometimes even plant directly into it right away depending on what you're growing, and that ground underneath transforms itself. The worms do the tilling for you. They always have. We just forgot to let them. Now here's where most beginners panic, because the next question is always, okay, but what do I actually put in the soil to make it fertile? And this is where the fertilizer industry has done an incredible job convincing you that plant nutrition is complicated and expensive. It's not. Somewhere in your kitchen right now, you are throwing away the exact things your soil is starving for. Coffee grounds are nitrogen. Eggshells are calcium. Banana peels are potassium. You don't need a store, you need a bucket. And I want to give you the single easiest fertilizer system that exists, one that farmers in Korea have used for generations, long before synthetic fertilizer ever existed. It's called fermented plant juice, and all it is chopping up fast, growing weeds, comfrey if you have it, even kitchen scraps, packing them into a jar with a little bit of sugar, and letting them ferment for about a week. That process pulls out a concentrated liquid full of exactly the nutrients your plants use to grow, and you dilute it with water and pour it right at the base of your plants. That's it. That's the whole fertilizer program. No bag, no bottle, no cost. Just something rotting in a jar in your garage that your plants are going to love. And I know what some of you are thinking right now. That sounds disgusting. I don't want a jar of rotting weeds in my backyard. Fair. But think about what's actually disgusting here. Is it a jar of plant juice? Or is it the fact that we've been paying $20 a bottle for something that's been sitting on forest floors doing this exact job for free since before humans existed? Nature already solved fertilizer. We just started charging ourselves for the solution. Let's talk about watering next, because this is the thing that actually kills more gardens than anything else. Not neglect. Overwatering. Beginners assume more water equals more growth, so they're out there every single day with the hose. And what they're actually doing is drowning the roots and washing away the exact microbial life we just spent all this effort protecting. A plant that's watered lightly but constantly grows shallow, weak roots that sit right near the surface, desperate for the next drink. That plant is fragile. The second you miss a day, it collapses. What you actually want is the opposite. You want to water deeply and then leave it alone. Deep, infrequent watering forces roots to travel down into the earth looking for moisture, and that builds a plant with a real foundation, one that can survive a missed week, a heat wave, a vacation. But here's the trick that makes this whole low-effort approach actually work, and it's mulch. A thick layer of straw or dried leaves or wood chips over your soil is doing 3 jobs at once. It's blocking sunlight from reaching weed seeds so they never even germinate. It's holding moisture in the ground so it doesn't evaporate in the afternoon heat. And as it breaks down, it's feeding your soil the exact same way that cardboard layer did at the start. Mulch is the single laziest thing you can do in a garden, and it might be the most powerful. I've had beds mulched properly go 2, sometimes 3 weeks in summer heat without a single drop of water from me, and they came out fine. That's not a trick. That's just what soil does when you stop stripping away its protection. Now let's talk about the thing that scares beginners the most, and that's pests and disease. Because the moment you see a hole chewed in a leaf, the instinct is to panic, go buy a spray, and start coating everything in chemicals. And I want to reframe how you think about this completely. A healthy, diverse garden regulates itself. Pests show up in massive, destructive numbers when there's nothing around to eat them. So instead of spraying, you invite the predators in. You plant flowers, dill, yarrow, alyssum, anything that attracts ladybugs and lacewings and parasitic wasps, and those insects will hunt down the aphids and the caterpillars for you around the clock, for free, without you lifting a finger. This is called companion planting, and honestly, it's one of the oldest tricks in agriculture, going back thousands of years, long before anyone thought spraying poison on your food was a reasonable solution to a bug problem. And a few holes in a leaf, by the way, that's not a crisis. That's a garden that's alive. A garden with 0 insect activity at all isn't a healthy garden. It's a sterile one. And sterile gardens are fragile because there's nothing there to bounce back when a real problem shows up. Let a little imperfection exist. It's actually a sign things are working. Let's talk about what you're actually planting, because even the low-effort approach can fail if you're fighting against your climate instead of working with it. The number one mistake beginners make is planting whatever looks appealing at the garden store without checking if it's suited to where they live or when they're planting it. That's like trying to force a square peg into a round hole and then blaming the peg when it doesn't fit. Instead, look at what grows wild and thrives without help in your area, because that tells you exactly what your local soil and climate are built to support. Then lean toward what's naturally resilient. Perennial herbs that come back every year without replanting. Greens that regrow after you cut them instead of needing to be started over. Root vegetables that basically take care of themselves underground while you do nothing at all. Build your garden around plants that want to be there, and suddenly you're not fighting the whole season, you're just harvesting. And here's something almost nobody talks about, which is polyculture, meaning don't plant in single, isolated rows like a factory farm. Mix your plants together the way they'd grow in a wild meadow. Tall plants providing shade for shorter ones that need a break from full sun. Root vegetables using the space underground while leafy greens use the space above. Beans pulling nitrogen out of the air and feeding it into the soil for the corn growing right next to them. This is literally called the 3 sisters, corn, beans, and squash. And indigenous farmers in the Americas were using this exact system for thousands of years before any of us were born, because it works. Mixed planting confuses pests that are hunting for a single crop, it uses your space more efficiently, and it builds a mini ecosystem that supports itself. You're not managing separate plants anymore. You're managing one system that manages itself. Now, I want to address the elephant in the room, because you might be thinking, this all sounds nice, but doesn't it take years for soil like this to actually build up and get good? And the honest answer is, it gets better every single year. Yes, but you don't have to wait years to get a harvest. You can plant directly into that cardboard and compost lasagna bed within weeks. What improves over time isn't your ability to grow food, it's how little you have to do to get that food. Year 1, you might still water occasionally and pull a weed here and there. By year 3, with the mulch built up and the soil life fully established, you're mostly just walking through, harvesting, and walking back out. That's the actual promise here, not instant perfection. Compounding ease. I think the deeper issue is that we've been sold a version of gardening that mirrors everything else wrong with modern life. Constant intervention, constant monitoring, constant spending. Buy the fertilizer, buy the pesticide, buy the tiller, buy the subscription box of seeds, and somehow, after doing all of that, people still end up with gardens that fail, and they walk away thinking the problem was them. It wasn't. The problem was that you were taught a method built to sell you products, not built to grow food. The plants themselves have never needed any of that. They've been growing on this planet for hundreds of millions of years without a single bag of synthetic fertilizer. Your job isn't to control them. It's to stop getting in their way. So here's what I want you to actually do this week, and I'm going to keep this simple because that's the entire point of everything we just talked about. Pick one small area, doesn't need to be big. 4 feet by 4 feet is plenty. Lay cardboard over the grass, pile compost and straw on top. Start a jar of fermented scraps in a corner of your kitchen you won't mind smelling for a week. And plant something that already grows wild and easy where you live. That's it. That's the whole start. No spreadsheet, no pH meter, no fertilizer aisle. And if this actually helped you see gardening differently, do me a favor and subscribe, because I've got a lot more coming on how our grandparents grew more food with less effort than we do now with every convenience imaginable. Let me know down in the comments what you're planting this week. I read every single one, and I'll see you in the next video.